Welcome back, everyone, to another wild and exciting episode of the R&R podcast. I am your host, Robert Jones, along with the one, the only, the frequently sodomized Randy Watkins.
Hey, Robert, it's me. It's your hormone monster.
It's the what?
I'm your hormone monster.
Okay. It sounds like you're talking to me from a 1920s telephone of some kind. I'm sorry, are you trying to reach the dispatcher in St. Louis?
You're the man, Robert. Keep up the good work.
You know what? You kind of sound like a voodoo priest, like in New Orleans. Like, you gonna die, boy. You gonna die.
I know your future, and it's pretty dark.
It also sounds like Yoda smoking a lot of weed. Like... a lot of weed. Like he's the Little Wayne. Like if Yoda and Little Wayne had a baby, that's what they would sound like.
Where's the Doritos?
Yeah, that's makes my skin crawl. So ostensibly, this show that Randy Watkins and I do is about sports. Sports, fun stuff like that. We get distracted by a lot of things, but we did have an episode before this. We've had a lot of episodes before this. We have 25 episodes before this, and the last one, there were some major technical, how can I put this tactfully, fuck-ups, but not fuck-ups on our part, if I might add, Randy. No. Fuck-ups on the part of our guest, unfortunately.
Yep. I blame him.
Bad network, bad tech. Also, probably, in fairness, a bad system, because if we were using this system and he kept dropping out, we could keep recording without any latency issues or missed files of any kind.
Yeah, it didn't go as planned as we had thought it out. At least perception versus reality, Robert. A lot different a lot of the times, and that's what happened. I was so excited to have a guest on for our 25th episode and really wanted it to work, but a lot of technical difficulties.
It's because you're just tired of looking at this ugly mug. that's really what it was. So you're tired of riffing with me. You're tired of trying to make things work. Really, you're just tired of dealing with a Duke fan in general, which I understand. Which I will point out for those of you watching the video, I got my Cameron Crazies shirt on tonight as Duke brings down the hammer on itty bitty little Hartford, Connecticut.
Oh God.
Adding insult to injury to the triangle. Not only did Raleigh steal away their professional hockey team, which became the Carolina Hurricanes, but now they are destroying them on the college basketball court. Could it really go any other way?
I didn't know they had a Division I team. But.
I know, right? Well, you know what, Randy? They should have come to town and played Chapel Hill. Ha ha! Zing!
Mm-hmm. Maybe we would fare better with them than we do Texas or Michigan.
Michigan, yeah. In fairness, did you hear that? Speaking about some local triangle news, that NC State is going to be playing their next game is going to be in Reynolds Coliseum. They try and do one of those games every year. Now, has Carolina? I know Roy has mentioned it, but what do you think the odds are that they're actually going to do like a throwback game in the old gym on campus?
I've never heard of that. I don't think that would happen. Is there talk about it?
Yeah, so there are murmurs of it. I know that Roy would certainly like to do it. The energy in there would be great. But the only problem is, like, for all these throwback games, the money they make on selling out the Dean Dome is too big for them to sacrifice to play in the small arena. And that's kind of why NC State plays dumb teams in Reynolds. So I'll give you an example. Their next game is against Western Carolina in Reynolds, which ain't nobody cares about that game. And I don't care how anybody feels about NC State. They are going to destroy Western Carolina. Those basketball programs are on very, very different planes.
Much different planes.
Yeah, no kidding. The big problem I have with the Dean Dome, I should say the Dean Smith Center over at Chapel Hill is like everything on campus. It's parking. You have this stadium. I don't remember exactly what the capacity. It's like 19,000 or something like that. Mm-hmm. But anytime I've tried to go to the game, it's just a nightmare. It's like, well, time to park 5 miles away and hike.
21,000, but
okay, 21,000.
Right on.
All right, I was within 2,000, which all of Cameron is like 4,500, something like that. It's pretty small. All things
parking is horrendous, and getting in and out of Chapel Hill, anybody who's been there knows that it's horrible to get in and out of.
It's almost like they don't want anyone to drive a car in there.
Well, what are there?
It's great. I'm just going to ride my fart-powered bicycle to the co-op, pick up my organic, nasty, worm-filled food, and
It's funny that you mentioned that because the company I work for is in Chapel Hill, and they recently had a town meeting that we were invited to, and the only thing they talked about the entire time was a fucking bike share. How they wanted people to carpool to work and ride bikes.
Sometimes stereotypes just play themselves out, Rando.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes they just play themselves out.
Yes, they do.
Let's actually talk about there's lots of sports going on. So why don't you hit us with the first story, some of that hot, spicy, wild Kansas City news.
This is so fresh. Hide your kids, hide your wife. Kareem Hunt is on the loose, Robert. Look out.
The juice is on the loose. Actually, the juice is on the loose. He's out of prison, man.
He is. Kareem Hunt will kick a bitch.
Oh, jeez. What's so crazy is they knew about this back in February, or he knew about it in February. Yeah. What happened here? Who dropped the ball in this story?
Well, what I was reading is that the NFL also knew about it back in February and actually told the Chiefs to stop looking into the video after the Chiefs were doing their own investigation. It doesn't make any sense for a league that has, parlayed every little minor detail, even those cases that were not led to convictions and actually, rain down the hammer on these guys. It's a weird situation.
It does make some sense. And to quote the great philosopher, Mr. Krabs, I think it all comes down to money.
Yeah.
Any crabs.
Why do you think? He's an offensive player. Offensive players ostensibly are good for the league because of what? Fantasy football.
Yep. And Russian title last year. So not just a good, not just an offensive player, one of the best, if not the best running back in the league.
I'm noticing a pattern here with running backs. Adrian Peterson, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt.
They like to beat their kids or their wife.
What I think it is? You know what I think it is? It is muscular short men with Napoleon complexes. That's what it really boils down to, Rando.
Could be, bro.
But that's... you know what? Good riddance. Zero tolerance. If he truly realizes he's done something wrong, we've talked about this before. There should be opportunities for forgiveness and redemption. That there should be an avenue for that, but there has to be genuine forgiveness. There has to be wanting that forgiveness. There has to be wanting to do better.
It seems like, at least for me, that they're trying to create this environment of making a pathway for these young men, because they are. I can look up Kareem Hunt's age, but I can't imagine him being over 25.
Yeah.
That they are creating this environment. It's 23 years old, dude. So they're creating this environment of trying to put them on the right pathway of life. And instead of that happening in this case and the Chiefs backing him and supporting him, they dropped his ass like yesterday's newspaper. I was shocked.
You know what I think it is? I think it'd be very different if they were not in pursuit of a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. They've got a big lens focused on them right now, and they don't need that kind of press. They've got an NFL MVP candidate in their quarterback right now. He when you look at people who are deserving of it, he's got to be up there. Patrick Mahomes. He's got 41, 42 touchdowns, and he could very easily break the single season record if he keeps playing the way that he is. Single season record is 55?
I think so. 50 somewhere between 52 and 55.
Yeah. I seem to remember reading an article about it recently, but it wouldn't be that ridiculous for him to do that, but there's 4 games left in the season, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning went 55. That's right.
55. That's wouldn't it suck for him that 2 of his records be broken this season by Drew Brees? No. 2 by Drew Brees, 1 by Tom Brady, and then another by Patrick Mahomes. And it's just you know what? I had a good run.
So much for that.
Oh man. Yeah,
I was, shocked to see how quickly it all spiraled out of control for him and the team. But the thing we shouldn't forget, Robert, is not a lot of people know it and not a lot of people talk about it anymore. But Tyreek Hill choked and punched his girlfriend back in college, or his pregnant girlfriend, I might add. That's not talked about. He's still on the team, and there's no longer any issues about it.
Give it time. It's just it really what it takes is it takes the lens of truth to be focused on somebody. They're kind of like ant in a magnifying glass.
Sure.
And we're like we got these goldfish brains. We're just like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
There's no permanence to anything. If you can survive one news cycle, if you can just stick to your guns for one news cycle, people forget. They'll just give up.
Short-term memory loss. I also was surprised to see that Madden removed him so quickly. Robert, how bad is it when a video game
has the video actually surfaced of what he did?
Yes.
Like, have we seen it? I hadn't seen it.
Mm-hmm. I've seen it.
Yeah,
they're like in a hotel, and the security footage, and like in front of an elevator of a hotel. And a bunch of them are pushing and shoving, getting into it. People are holding Kareem Hunt back, and this girl gets knocked down the ground, and she's just like laying there, and he runs up, beside her and just kicks her.
Yeah.
He doesn't all out like rib shot her, but he does kick her. And when one looking at that video going, bro, what were you thinking, man? That's not smart at all. Regardless of the circumstances, it doesn't matter. You still did that to a woman. And in today's society, that's not tolerated, especially.
I will say, Randy, we are all about equality until a man strikes a woman.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
It's the one thing that, like, everybody's like, women and men are exactly equal. What about if this dude punches her? No, absolutely not.
No, your mom must have taught you better.
That's the bridge too far. Yeah, I mean, that's how I was raised. I'm not saying that you should go out and strike a woman, but it's just interesting that in the realm of equality, that's one of the things that kind of gets dropped in there.
Sure.
Somebody's going to isolate this and be like, oh, you're excusing abuse. Absolutely not. Just an observation.
It'll be interesting. Let me ask you this. What do you think the fallout will be for his career?
Well, I mean, the very idea of it being over at 23 years old, that's what I mean. Something about that just makes me sick to my stomach. Golly, because we know these guys, like, they don't really get a college education, and this was his way out,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what he does. He's got to fall on his sword and play his PR carefully. He's already done his interview and such, which I guess it's good that he went out and did that. But look at Adrian Peterson got back in the league. Here's the deal. There's opportunities for everyone unless you're Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah. Nice quip in there. I got a spot for that later in the show, but you're right. He is 23. Time heals all wounds, and people believe in second chances, and eventually the public will forgive him, I think. But it's going to take time. Now, the thing is, I put some notes in here about Greg Hardy. I mean, a Panthers, star.
Yeah.
Eventually went on to the Cowboys, but it was later in his career. Ray Rice, dude, same thing. It was very late in his career.
Yeah.
So it didn't happen when those guys were 23. Ray McDonald, same case, later in his career. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how long this goes on for Kareem Hunt, who is top 3 running backs, at least in the league. I think he's up there with Gurley and
I feel bad for anybody who has him in fantasy.
Yeah, that's
bye.
That sucks.
Oh man, because he was healthy too. I mean, that's nothing worse than a healthy running back that you can't play. But that was me last season with Ezekiel Elliott. It was like I got him for a couple of games and then he was just gone. But the games I had were great. I was getting like 30 points out of him. It was magical. Magical.
Who's had his issues too.
All right. Next story. not that we need to dwell on domestic abuse for forever, but this isn't that podcast. So Mike McCarthy, after 13 seasons as the skipper of the Green Bay Packers, has been asked to pack up and leave for a shit ass performance. They lose to the 3-9 Cardinals.
Mm-hmm. Terrible team
at home.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. The
Arizona Dome team came to Lambeau in December and won. Without Kurt Warner, without Carson Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
They got nobody. They got Larry Fitzgerald, but isn't he retiring at the end of the season?
Yeah, he's about done. David Johnson hasn't been himself since his injury. And that whole team has just really struggled to put points on the board this year. You can't turn a franchise over to a rookie quarterback and be successful. It's just too rare, Robert. There's such a strong learning curve.
Yeah, well, and we see it time and time again, and it's a shame because you have these really promising quarterbacks who, if they'd had a few years under the tutelage of somebody else, probably would be great. Mm-hmm. But they're putting them right into the blast furnace to begin with, and it just burns them out. Yep. It just burns them out. Yep. They have no time to adjust. And that's why these offensive coordinators are continually having to go revert back to college schemes. We even do it in Carolina. We keep Cam in a college scheme, the classic college option. Like Norv Turner even changed his playbook to suit Cam's play style.
Mm-hmm. Is that the run pass option?
Run pass option, but more that very it's a college style offense, and it works. And offensively for the Panthers, it has worked this year. But Cam's shoulder's not right. They've been hiding it forever, and then the last 2 games when they've had Hail Marys to throw, it wasn't his ass throwing them, and I know that means he's got a bad shoulder.
I did read that Rivera took him out of the game at the end there too.
He also threw 4 picks to a bad team.
Yeah.
And Olsen's out again, the same foot problem again. Honestly, he's getting all. He's like what 34, 35. This I don't know. He may come back for a season or 2, but this may be the end. He just keeps injuring the same foot. But I didn't mean to talk about the Panthers. We were talking about the Packers. It's not Panthers corner. We're not on the Panthers perch.
So I guess my question to you is, look, Mike McCarthy has a stellar record, dude. 125 wins, 77 losses over 13 years. Dude, he has made playoffs 9 out of 13 years.
And they've lost in the first round of the playoffs many of those years.
Yes, that's true. You have 1 ring. My question to you is: this more to do with the golden boy there?
So I will say this: there's something. Aaron Rodgers has had his own injury problems this season, but his stats are still good. He's going to finish the season with an almost 100 passer rating, which is I don't want to hear it. The thing that I hate, and not that I think that Aaron Rodgers is the anointed one, the greatest quarterback ever. I don't, but they are squandering what should be his prime years, and they are dwindling quickly.
True.
I think Rodgers is the same age as Olsen. I think he's like 34, 35, something like that. So, will he be a Tom Brady plays to, 100? Maybe. I doubt it. Certainly not we haven't seen that thus far. But the thing is, like, he just doesn't have weapons, and they don't have a good defense. And they talk a big game about Clay Matthews, but I think Clay Matthews is all sizzle and no steak. Like when it comes right down to it, he's just not that smart of a defensive player. And he showed early on in the season that he couldn't adjust to new rule sets because he was consistently 3 or 4 games in a row getting the same penalty.
Yeah, the roughing the passer. Yep.
Yeah, and you're the captain of the defense. I don't. Anyways, I got my own complaints there, but they're supposed to be this perennial great team. Honestly, I think it's just mismanagement from top down. McCarthy's been making some bad decisions here and there, but again, there's just a player's problem. They just don't have weapons. They aren't competing. There aren't players that want to go to Green Bay.
Yeah, McCarthy's teams were always known for, and maybe it's more of Rodgers' career, for these great comeback victories, right?
Yeah.
And over the last 2 seasons, he's 11-18-1, and they really haven't beat anybody. They didn't make the playoffs last year. What are they, 4-8 this year? 4-9. This
not
year,
good.
not
they're,
good.
They're out of contention in their division. They're out.
So the first thing when I heard this, Robert, when I texted some friends of mine, I said, how the fuck does McCarthy get fired and Marvin Lewis still has a job?
It's because it's a job nobody else wants.
That's true, I guess.
It's his to keep in perpetuity.
Another job in Ohio.
They are
Ohio
satisfied with mediocrity.
And Marvin Lewis, dude, for the record, I think he is a good coach, but dude, they suck year after year.
Yeah.
But
any other team, he'd be gone.
Yeah.
Honestly, speaking of coaching changes, I think we're on the precipice of a coaching shakeup in Charlotte.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
You think so? Wow.
Well, they've kicked. I mean, two of their coaches are gone. Their defensive coordinator has been benched. Ron's going to be making the calls. I read that. And Tepper is a different kind of owner. It's a what have you done for me lately? It's a you've got the tools. Why aren't you winning? It's Now Tepper has said publicly that he's willing to be patient and that he thinks that the general manager, that they have not gotten the right staff to Rivera for the such. But, I see some of the same Riverboat Ron choices that he's a great guy. His team loves him. His players love him. He really is a great human being. But the question is Ron Rivera an elite coach in the NFL? And the answer is no. I still think he could be a great coach for the Panthers, but here's another thing. He's lost 3 defensive coordinators 3 years in a row, which is a good sign because it means he's training these guys to go out and become head coaches. But there's a brain drain from changing your staff every year. And the defense this year for the Panthers is bad. It's the worst they've had in a decade.
Oh yeah. Very bad.
Their offense, though they're not winning, their offense is still good. Don't pay attention to the 4-pick game they had last week. But Christian McCaffrey is having an MVP kind of season.
Oh, he is, dude. I'll make an argument that he's one of. You can't even call him a third down back because he's been there carrying the load this season. And now, if you rewind back to some of our podcasts, we were like, if he can stay healthy and he can play. If he can carry the ball 20 times a game and get catches on top of that, he's going to have a monstrous season. He's
Cam's favorite target, man. And here's the deal. People were saying, well, he's too small. He won't be able to run through between the tackles. I'll be damned. That little son of a gun, Speedy Gonzalez, can run between the tackles. And there's I love it. There's videos. Go look them up. There's videos of big defensive backs and corners who are like trying to push him to the ground. And he's just like grabbing them and slamming them. I mean, he's like, He's not skipping the core day is all I'm saying. He's getting ripped.
It's funny that these guys like him look small in the field and he's still 5'11",
Yeah. Well, because you're surrounded by guys who are like 6'8".
Exactly.
Cam Newton's 6'6", something ridiculously tall. Yeah. Cam's built like, just a giant, big, mean, linebacker.
Right.
Which is why when linebackers try and take him down, you just watch him lower his shoulder and knock them to the ground. That has got to be intimidating as hell. When you are a defensive player and you are used to bullying other guys and you've got somebody who bullies you.
Especially quarterbacks, right?
Especially quarterbacks, yeah. You watch Tom Brady and it's like you tap him and he falls over like a tin soldier. Giselle. Sorry.
I like that video I sent you. I can't remember what game it was where they run was it a double handoff? Was it a double reverse or something like that? And he tries to be the lead blocker and just falls on his ass.
Oh yeah. I remember the one you're talking about, and they just nail him.
That is not one of his strong suits, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I think we've waltzed into the Panthers' corner. Here's one question I will say about Green Bay. Who's going to be the man? Who do you think could be a good candidate to coach Green Bay to help, utilize Aaron Rodgers' talents.
So what I've been reading, Robert, is all signs point to Joe Philbin, who is there currently going to be
Interim?
interim coach, to actually take the job. That they're going to keep him in house, and he's the defensive coordinator. And he's already fired one of the assistants.
I saw that earlier today.
So, and I want to say he was a coach before. He was Miami's coach back a few years ago, and he was not good. Has as a career under a 500 record. So that won't last for long if he can't turn them around. But,
it's those damn union towns, man. They have problems with leadership across the board.
So
the ownership of the Packers has always been one of the most curious things. Like, I don't know how that operation functions. Are you familiar at all with what I'm talking about?
I'm not, no.
So the team's owned by the fans. The fans are shareholders.
That's right.
There is not a quote unquote owner. I think they have a representative, like a union boss who represents them, but it's Wisconsin. Of course it's a union team. You know what I mean? But they're the only team in the league that's like that.
Hey, Aaron Rodgers, and he hasn't been playing like himself. Yeah.
Yeah, no. I think that's some real strong treasonous words you're saying there, because he can't do no wrong in my mind. You must be one of them there Vikings fans, and you know how we feel about them. They can go to hell.
North of the border, you have to go back to Canada.
Oh man, Roger Goodell is just like get a little feisty under the belt line. They're thinking about having a team in Canada.
I'm sure. I've always heard that they're kind of the blue collar team, and the shareholders deal. I never knew too much about that, but
yep.
I would almost welcome that in Washington right now, Rob.
Oh, over your owner? Oh, well, did you surely you paid attention earlier this season that he got Native American tribes to bless the field and the team, right?
No, yeah. I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Well, and people are saying that's why the Redskins keep having quarterbacks breaking legs, that the Native American tribes actually cursed them.
How do you have the same damn injury 2 weeks apart from each other, or 3 weeks apart, whatever it was?
It breaks my heart for both of them, for Alex Smith and Colt McCoy, because here Colt McCoy finally has a chance to come out and maybe make something of his career again, and just broken leg done. You know what? It's really damning to your offensive line, Randy. That is not a good sign.
They have been piss poor on the offensive line. And I just read the other day, too, that we lost another offensive lineman. Jeez. And they have had, I would venture to say, 50 different lineups this season, just from people being in and out and hurt and whatnot. And we've lost 3 of our starters to IR, and now we've lose another guy that we've plugged in. It's bad, dude.
So you're down to your third string quarterback, which
oh God.
Hey, Randy, come on, he's a former starting quarterback in the NFL.
I looked at the guys that they worked out. I have to pull this up because I have to read off these names. They are just they just are so bad.
You see, Randy, they call him Mark the Dirty Sanchez for a reason.
But they brought in Sanchez. They brought in now it wasn't Case Keenum. I mean, it was like names that you haven't heard of in years, and I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, from like Madden NFL 07.
Yeah, it's the quarterback free agency that much slim pickings. Oh yeah, it's either what you got to go here with is Mark Sanchez or Vinny Testaverde coming off.
Oh God, Vinny Testaverde. He's in a wheelchair now.
It's so bad. And they just signed Josh Johnson today, which I had no idea.
I love his music.
he was still around.
Josh Johnson, yeah. He's in there, that Hawaiian surfer guy, you know?
Is that Jack Johnson?
Yeah. Is that Jack Johnson? Whatever. I know you know your bro folk music. Come on, man. You got it down.
So he hasn't played in NFL down since 2011. So yeah.
I'm sorry. I suffer from NFL Down syndrome.
Oh. Oh, that's bad.
What's a few extra chromosomes between friends, Randy?
Leave it to you, my fair brother. So
I'm not fit for TV. I'm too edgy for TV, Randy. That's why we're on YouTube.
So rumor has it, or had it rather, that they considered Colin Kaepernick for that job, who you alluded to at the beginning of the show, but chose to go in a different direction.
Oh God.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we thought about him, and then we were like, boy, we'd be really fucking idiots if we brought him in.
You know, people already kind of hate us for being the Redskins, but then they really hate us.
Really hate us. And then it's funny because all the trolls come out, and the keyboard warriors like, oh, yeah, I know the Redskins are such a progressive, forward-thinking team. It's a big surprise that they didn't take Colin Kaepernick.
You know what they need to do? The starting quarterback for the Redskins, RuPaul. Well, you see, Ed, that's a chick with a dick there. So it's a damnedest thing. Anybody else turned on?
Such a good tackle. Such good form, and you rolled off of me. But if you want,
hey man, no longer the Washington Redskins. Let's do something really offensive. The Washington Trannies.
Oh man. So
man, you want to talk about putting my foot in my mouth, which is hard because it's a big foot. But here I'd grown up, being exposed to individuals like RuPaul who used the term tranny. So I thought it was okay. And I used it passing a couple of months ago, jokingly, really lovingly, and was told that was offensive and that I needed to check my privilege.
Really?
So, check.
Tranny. So how was the context? You got to give me the context.
I don't precisely remember the context.
Okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, though oft I am offensive, the intention was not to offend.
They
But
refer to themselves as blank, and I'm not sure what it is. What is it? What's the PC term then?
It actually depends on the individual, which is why it's so confusing. There are some people who prefer to be addressed as Zim or Zer or they.
Zim? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Zim like a Z?
Yes.
Come on, jack that stack, baby. Whoa.
Hey, Toots, I got something for you here.
Where's that clam digger?
I love how when we think of transvestite, we just think of like a butch New Jerseyan, just like, hey, I got your fucking thing right here. Yeah.
Hey, yo, dig that.
Good time. Like in a skirt and fishnets, but like very obviously a man. Which is very insensitive to the androgynous individuals, like the David Bowie sect,
Yes. Yeah,
speaking of David Bowie, something that always really bothered me, though I thought his music and art was brilliant, there was a year of his life that he completely subsisted off of raw bell peppers, milk, and cocaine.
You got to get the protein of the cocaine in there.
Can you imagine the smell of being around an individual that all they eat is whole milk, raw bell peppers, and cocaine?
Oh, God. That's pretty bad. What does burp smell like?
Oh, or his poops, Randy. His poops.
They're all seedy and like chalky.
Oh God.
How do you? No wonder he was like 40 pounds, Robert. Jesus.
I know. Yeah.
The cocaine. I've always heard that cocaine it makes you lose incredible amount of weight.
You remember he did that movie, The Man That Fell to Earth, The Man Who Fell to Earth? Well, really, he was like a feather. He just kind of, worked his way down. I have arrived. Let's dance.
To continue.
Put on your dance shoes and do some cocaine. Ugh.
Do you ever, when you take the bell pepper, you know how the bell pepper has the divot at the top? Do you think he ever just, loaded all the coke right there? Just snipped it right off the top of the bell pepper?
He just holds up the bell pepper to his friend. He's like, you see that? Kind of looks like what does that look like? Huh? What does that look like?
He puts a straw in it.
Yeah, kind of looks like a beehole.
He puts a straw in it, and it's just a cocaine-filled bell pepper.
with milk.
I'm washing it down with a cold glass of milk. Oh, man.
Well, gross. You know what? So back to the Colin Kaepernick. Yeah. So I wonder if he does cocaine and drinks milk. No, he's probably got some
what he's doing now. Is he staying in football shape and working out, or is he just you know what, this ain't gonna happen?
I would love it if he like some rogue company just had the balls to give him a sponsorship, somebody bad too, like Blimpie. You haven't even seen a Blimpie in 10 years. But Blimpie sponsor him, and instead of Jared Fogle, who lost weight eating sandwiches, he just blows up. He literally gains 200 pounds from eating Blimpie sandwiches.
It's funny you say that, because the last time I saw one was when we were in Ohio just a couple of weeks ago, and I said to Jenny, I said, "You see what that is right there in that shopping center?" She's like, "What?" "Oh, Blimpie." "No, it's not a big deal." I was like, "Blimpie? When's the last time you've seen a Blimpie?"
Yeah. They're only in the Northeast, and they're garbage, Randy.
Yeah,
they're not good.
Are terrible. I remember eating them about 15 years ago around here.
If you thought Subway tasted cheap, holy crap!
Bro, I hate Subway. I will avoid Subway.
You're probably like me. You ate a lot of sandwiches as a kid. Now, as an adult, paying for a sandwich infuriates you.
Actually, I don't mind it. A good sandwich, but it has to be good. And that Subway shit is not good, bro.
Listen, the only sandwich I get excited for has ice cream in the middle. So, but that's why I'm 40 pounds overweight.
God.
Yeah. So, in other fun news, Kelvin Benjamin is out of work.
Yeah, dude.
Now, I remember some people very strongly criticizing the Panthers trading him away. I remember some Panthers fans really criticizing him.
I was very critical because I thought he was a great receiver, Robert, admittedly.
He was in college.
Is it just a system thing? I mean, how do you fall so far? The Bills suck. So,
I hate to say it with Kelvin Benjamin. It's just it's laziness.
Is that what it is?
As big as he is,
put on a lot of weight, right?
Every year he'd come to training camp and he'd be overweight. He'd be out of shape. He wouldn't have the stamina. He wouldn't be able to play games late. And he'd have these little guys who are 6 inches shorter than him beat him for balls. When he literally is 6'8". So there's no excuse. He's built like a tight end, but had faster speed than a tight end.
Sure.
He has no excuse, and he was great in college, but I don't know what it is. Maybe he's just one of those guys who got the money and showed up and, had his ass kissed a little bit too much and didn't work for it.
So the story goes that he was 240 in college, and when he ended his tenure in Charlotte was 280, dude.
Yeah. That is insane. And that ain't muscle
for a wide receiver.
Yeah.
280.
That's what Cam weighs,
Yeah, that's what, that's fat for a linebacker, dude. If you're 280 pounds as a linebacker, that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Because it's just proportionately, you cannot be fast at that speed. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you've got to make up for it. If you're a tight end, like you said, you can block and get off the line. But tight ends typically aren't running 4.4 and 4.5 40.
Here's the deal. Somebody will pick him up, and they'll do just that. If he's willing to do it, they will make him a goal line tight end. That would be the smart thing to do. Because even if he's not going to hop, at his height, inside in the red zone, he should theoretically be great at this short little in and out. And the good news is you don't have to have that much stamina. The question is he willing to shift at this point in his career? Because if a team as bad as the Bills are going to cut you loose, crap, man.
He and Calvin Johnson are the same size. Now, Calvin Johnson is obviously going to be a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame, but he is also 40 pounds less Calvin Johnson is than Kelvin Benjamin. He constantly weighed 240, and Calvin was one of the best receivers of all time.
And here's the deal. At that kind of elite level of athleticism, when you are that tall and that heavy, that extra weight that you're carrying is really hard on your body. It's harder on your knees. It's harder on your back. It's harder when you fall. It's harder to get started, and it's harder to stop. And so his career, it's gonna shorten his career if he doesn't get in shape.
Yeah. He'll probably get picked up, but it's crazy to see, dude, that the Buffalo Bills, your Panthers came out on the good on that. They gave up a 3rd and a 7th rounder for him, and less than a year later, dude, he's cut.
Yeah, I'm really hoping this year in the draft that the Panthers draft some defensive talent. Like, we seem to be pretty good on offense. We could use a better tight end to replace Olsen when he's gone, but we're pretty good on, and we need receivers like crazy, but we can trade for those. Funchess is just like, he was made the number 1 receiver and he's got the dropsies. He's had the dropsies all season. And it's like, here's the deal. If Cam's going to put it on your buttons, man, you better hold on to that ball. But anyways, let's move on. I don't want to keep.
They got a few holes to fill, but it's a really good team, and they're not out of the wild card yet, but they're right there. If they lose another game, Robert, it's going to be really tough for them to stay in contention.
Sure, you're telling. I mean, here's the deal. As a fan, I seriously was considering. I was like, well, we're not going to win the Super Bowl, but at least maybe we can make a run in the playoffs. We'll get in at the wild card. At this point, we've had 4 straight losses.
Yeah. Bad
ones to teams that we either had beaten or absolutely could have beaten. There is no excuse for the Seattle game. And it's just bad decisions. So moving on. Next story.
The Texans, bro, they're the hottest team in the NFL right now. I mean, they've won 9 straight.
Yeah. They, it's so funny. Early on, we were talking about them. They were 0-3, and we'd kind of written them off like, well, isn't that disappointing? But look at how that division is shooken up. I mean, they're solidly in strong contention to win the AFC South. I don't know who could challenge them. Would it be the Titans? I mean, I don't even think they're close.
I don't think so either. Because the Titans have struggled this year, and Mariota's been in and out. So unless they have a colossal collapse, they should win that division.
Yeah.
The Colts. The Colts just put up a goose egg this weekend, man. They scored nothing in a game that they should have won.
Yeah, man. Do you remember when Andrew Luck was like the anointed one, like the next greatest quarterback forever? And I just think, I think he got the injury bugaboo, and I still don't think he's right. I mean, I don't know what you do to fix that.
Lost to the Jaguars, for God's sakes, Robert. The Jaguars are terrible, and they didn't have Leonard Fournette last weekend.
Yeah. Jaguars don't have a quarterback. Anybody who doesn't have a quarterback, you should be able to beat those teams.
Yeah. Yes, which, by the way, we can't go without mentioning, because we've talked about Bortles a lot on this podcast, but they benched his ass pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, we fucking called it. It's like weird. It's like, why would you give him all this money?
He gave him all that money. Exactly.
He has more interceptions than touchdowns, Randy.
Yeah.
And that's a starting quarterback in the NFL. And the thing that I don't understand is, like, Tom Coughlin is supposed to be this like football genius, but it sounded like, to me, from the interviews, I don't know, it sounded like Bortles was not Coughlin's guy, but that he didn't have a choice. So who made that call?
owner, I guess.
I guess you know what it is. I think the owners didn't want to spend the money. Teams that are perennially bad are generally it's because the owner doesn't want to go out and spend money or take the luxury tax.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Well, they're going to find out real hard that they're going to have to do something this offseason because Bortles is not going to get it done. Now, who's going to pick up that contract? They're just going to have to cut their losses.
Yeah.
It sucks because that's going to be on the books, man. They just signed him to that mega contract. So,
dumb.
3 years.
Dumb. Yeah, nobody else is going to buy it out. Nobody wants it.
Exactly.
All right, next, Steelers lose 2 in a row. They drop one to the Broncos, which you absolutely called. You called that game. You thought the Broncos were going to get the upset on that. And then, honestly, I kind of had a good feeling the Chargers would be able to beat them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I told you 2 weeks ago that my money's still on the Steelers doing something crazy at the end of the season, getting to the AFC Championship game, just because I know that they can. Like, they have this, idiot savant nature to the team where it just suddenly clicks and they just destroy teams.
Mm-hmm.
But they've dropped 2 bad ones, and they lost to the Chargers at home with a 16-point lead, which they have never done before. It was like 74-1-1, something like that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It was bad. Like, it was historic. At home,
Yikes.
Yeah.
If they can I was going to say, if they can hold off the Ravens, man, they should win the division. But the Ravens under Lamar Jackson is hot right now. They've won his 3 in a row. Yeah.
The only thing I'm worried about is I remember Michael Vick last week reached out to Lamar Jackson to give him advice. And I was like, whoa.
They run the ball 80% of the time with him, Robert. They don't throw the ball with him. He is not a good passing quarterback, but he will beat your ass on the ground all day long. He's quick as hell.
Until they adapt for it. These quarterbacks that don't throw a lot and run, they get one good season. And then defensive coordinators have tape on them, and they're like, oh, I know you're not going to throw it, so I'm going to make you throw it. Right. I'm going to make sure you have nowhere to run, and I'm going to force you to throw it. And
stack the box.
Yep. Yeah, you'll make a few passes, but we'll get ours. Mm-hmm. And it's the same old story. To go back on Colin Kaepernick for a minute, he's somebody who had a tendency to let a play break up and run. Mm-hmm. And he had a great first season because nobody had any tape on him. He was backup for Alex Smith. Alex Smith gets injured. They give him the opportunity, and then they bench Alex Smith. He takes over. And so every team that's facing him doesn't have enough tape on him to compensate, to figure him out. And then the next season, no surprises there. It was 2 things. 1, they had tape on Kaepernick so they could, plan for him. But 2, it was the Super Bowl hangover. Every team suffers the Super Bowl hangover. I mean, look at the Eagles.
Oh, gosh. They are something else this year. But I feel like, and I don't know the truth to this, Robert, but I feel like he was one of the first of the read option generation that actually started that. And nobody knew what to do with it because he had the speed to back it up. And that's why they made that system work. But then once they took that away from him, you're going to make him throw, and he's going to make mistakes when you take his legs out from underneath him. Look at RG3. Once his legs got taken out from underneath him, then everyone realized, dude, this guy's football dumb. He can't make a read. He can't read defenses. He can't make the right throws. Yeah. Once you've taken his legs out from underneath him.
It's one of the reasons why Cam is still such – I mean, there are definitely criticisms of Cam, but Cam has stayed healthy in the legs. And Cam, if he needs to be a pocket quarterback, will make good throws when he's healthy. And the thing that defenses know Cam can run, and he'll still put 100 yards on you, and I think it's because of that sheer physical force that he can be on the field. Especially, it's so funny. We think of Norv Turner being such an old-fashioned guy, but he's schemed the run game perfectly around his tools. They've got wide receivers who have rushing yards this year on par with some running backs.
I did not know that.
Yeah, because of all their trick plays. I mean, they now the team in the league who has the most rushing attempts is actually the Seattle Seahawks. Really, they're keeping the ball out of Westbrook's hands. Basically, well, I mean, he's running it, but they don't want him to throw it. They've run more than any other team in the league for the whole season. Now, the Ravens may catch up percentage-wise, but they did have Flacco for a good portion of the season.
And they've done it without big-name running backs, too, you know?
Sure.
Chris Carson, a couple of other guys there. That's interesting. I would never have guessed that they would be league-leading runners.
Yeah, you know, the other thing is that we don't get a lot of Seattle games out here.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, by the way, bro, we are fantasy frenemies this week. We are going up together the first week in the playoffs.
That's true, man. That's true, man. You and I have the same record, so we got lumped up in the middle. I'll tell you what, man, I've had a real poor performance the last 2 weeks. This last week I won, but my team underperformed by 60 points. Like the projected points versus the points scored, there was a 60-point difference.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, everyone underperformed. At least I got a win. And my grade for the week was F. But our W is a W, brother.
It doesn't matter. Exactly. It doesn't matter what the projections are.
It doesn't matter if it's Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. All right, that's sorry.
We Hawking.
We Hawking, New Jersey, all right, North Carolina. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are gonna tear up and down that football field. Woo!
By the way,
damn, I love some Ric Flair.
He picked Georgia. Of course, he wouldn't go against his dogs Saturday night when Alabama beat the piss out of them.
Alabama didn't beat the piss out of him, Randy. Georgia was winning that game for almost all of it.
True.
Let's give credit where credit is due. Georgia played a hell of a game. Their coach cost them the game.
That's very true.
4th and 11, and he goes for a fake punt where Alabama leaves their defense on the field.
That was so stupid, dude.
They know that you've got your quarterback out there for a punt. They're your backup quarterback.
Let's just say Kirby was not so smart on that.
Jesus Christ. You know what? If you want to see anything that says the fix is in, it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because Georgia was in control of that game. Now, there's one last little contention, if I may, if I can get a little bit of my rage out. There was a huge missed pass interference call in the end zone at the end of the game. It was one of the 3 last plays. It was the 3rd play from the last play. Ball in the end zone. Georgia receiver open. Alabama guy is literally pulling him into the ground before the ball gets there.
See, I have a hard time with that. And I know it happens in college basketball a lot, but foul's a foul, right? It doesn't matter if it's at the end of the game or whatever. You can't swallow the whistle within the last 2 minutes of the game.
I agree. Well, and the reason why they didn't do it is because it would have put Georgia on the 1.
Mm-hmm.
Which would have cemented their ability to at least, and here's the deal, people miss this, to tie the game.
Right.
To tie the game.
Right.
And it just bugs the crap out of me because, and I get it. I was pulling for Georgia because I like the underdog. I'm tired of Alabama. I get it. But when it's so clearly a pass interference call and it's so clearly missed, and it's just like,
what do you do? Yeah. And that's why I think, and that's why I wrote here in the show notes, that isn't the college football playoff such a freaking joke?
I will say on that note, I do think that the 4 best teams are in the playoff.
You do. So
I do.
You don't think Georgia got screwed by not getting it?
Georgia's had 2 losses and they didn't win their conference. I mean, I just hate. Yes, they went toe to toe with Alabama, but we shouldn't have 2 SEC teams every single year in the college football playoff. I mean, like for the SEC, that they were good, but they're like Oklahoma had 1 loss to Texas by 3 points, and they trounced them in their championship game. Mm-hmm. So they proved that they could beat the team that barely beat them. That's absolutely a place. Now, the one you could contend is Notre Dame didn't have a championship game, but they're good. And let's face it, the 2 versus the 3 in the CFP is essentially the ACC championship game now.
Basically.
Because it's Clemson, Notre Dame. Alabama obviously was going to get in as long as they won out, and they did. And then, like I said, Oklahoma has their place. Ohio State abso-freaking-lutely does not belong there. Yeah, they beat Michigan, but their loss to oh God, I'm blanking on. It starts with a P. Midwestern team. Purdue, yes, thank you. Why couldn't I think of Purdue? So their loss to Purdue was bad, and they almost got beaten by Maryland. Ohio State didn't deserve to be there. And we're never going to see, Florida,
Mm-hmm. No, I just my only, I guess my biggest issue with it, Robert, is there's not enough teams in. I would like to see an 8-team playoff.
I agree wholeheartedly. I was like, 4's not enough because there's going to be cuspers that deserve a place at the table. And I'll give you an example. With 8, Georgia deserves a place at the table.
Yeah,
they do.
Yep, I agree.
But see, the problem is they make so much damn money off the bowls, which don't matter as much. So they had to do this weird hybrid system that sort of satisfies people, but not really. Here's the team I think is going to get upset first is honestly Clemson.
That's what I was going to say. I agree.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take that from you, but it's like they in what is usually a hard ACC, they really didn't get challenged this year.
Mm-mm.
Miami, bad. Virginia Tech, bad. Florida State, bad. NC State, who can beat Clemson, not great. They wound up 9-3, which is still good for NC State, but bad.
Sure.
And then they play Pitt. They play Pitt in the ACC championship.
Horrible.
Well, the divisions are all wrong. Like the ACC's divisions are like they assume that Carolina is going to be good, and Carolina hasn't been good for a while.
No.
But we have some news on that, actually.
Yeah. So this past week, Fedora is no longer the coach of the University of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, Mac Brown returning to UNC.
Who? Sorry, is this 1995, Randy?
I expected that from you.
Well, I called you as soon as I found out. Like, it's like Mac Brown hasn't coached in 5 years.
You're absolutely right. And when he left Texas, that was not a good team at the end.
No, he ran that sucker into the ground.
Yeah, he absolutely did. So let's just say this. If I was at the press conference when he announced that he was coming back to UNC, I would have said, excuse me, Mr. Brown, will you be wearing a fedora this season to honor the previous coach?
What's really funny about this that nobody's touched on? That the academic fraud that was happening at Chapel Hill absolutely was happening while Mac Brown was there.
Yeah.
It's amazing that just never gets brought up. It's just like, nope. Don't pay attention. It's under the rug.
Well, and the thing about Fedora is he was a very likable guy. He was very good with his players, but he was it was filled with the same drama. Look at the shoes ordeal where the football team was selling their shoes, the other academic issues that they had there. And time again, he was faced with these issues off the field, and he couldn't get wins on the field. So it just led to a struggling career for him.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one of those things. Carolina right now has a crisis of identity. And I think that's why the alumni were pushing. This is obviously a move to satisfy the alumni because we're trying to get back to the quote unquote glory days of a building Carolina program. But the problem is the ACC's changed and the money in the ACC is different. There's way more money now than there was in the 90s, especially with the TV deals with ESPN and their own network and such. And we're playing bigger boys. We've got Notre Dame consistently playing teams in the ACC. We've got juggernauts like Clemson, FSU, Virginia Tech, Miami. These are all teams that have national championships to their name. They are no joke. And when they're good, they're real good. So really the question is, does he still have it, or is he going to be playing an outdated style of football? Here's the deal. The optics are going to be good, and I guarantee he's going to bring in a heavy-duty staff. But the question will be, can Carolina get back and out-recruit Duke and State for in-state recruits? Because the last 5 years, they haven't.
That was one of the things that I did watch his press conferences. One of the things he talked about is before you go outside the state, you have to win within your state. You have to win within the triangle. You have to win with the east of the triangle, and you've got to bring in the named recruits inside of your state before you can also get the 4 and 5 star recruits out of your state. But let's be honest, Robert, those 4 and 5 star recruits are going to Carolina. They're going to SEC teams. They're going to Big Ten teams where football is more prevalent.
That reminds me, former starting quarterback Kelly Bryant of Clemson. Did you see where he has decided to go?
Missouri, of all places.
What?
Missouri? What conference is that?
I thought, is it Missouri in the SEC, or is it like the Big Ten? I'll pull it up. Yeah, SEC. Mizzou's in the SEC.
Really?
And why would you go to a conference that's that stacked?
I thought he was coming to Carolina, especially with Mac Brown being there, but it is what it is. He's not a starter at Clemson for a reason. So I don't know if that would mean he would be a starter somewhere else, but
he did get to a national championship game, Randy.
True.
Which is a lot better than we can say.
Or
really any North Carolina quarterback can say right now.
Yeah, that's for damn sure.
Pick your team. But yeah, man, it's gonna be interesting.
This podcast without mentioning Urban Meyer stepping down this week,
retiring for health reasons again. Whatever.
Yeah. Leaving a program in shambles is what he's doing.
Yeah, he's taking a page out of what's his face over at Kentucky.
Calipari?
Yeah, and they'll go to I love a nice plate of fried Calipari. When you dip it in the red sauce and a little bit of the lemon juice, it's so nice.
Oh, it's kind of a Donald Trump-esque.
You just want to build a great big wall around your table to keep all the unclean masses from looking at your Calipari.
Nobody likes calamari more than I do.
Yeah, Trump Tower makes the best taco salad.
Oh, fuck. Well, it's been fun, brother. Not only do I get to listen to you, but I get to look at your ugly mug.
I know, right? You know what? This is hell, Randy.
Now I know.
Sorry, whoops.
Oh, that's funny.
But enough cheap tricks. Enough cheap tricks for one night. Oh, it's always a pleasure,
Always.
I don't know if our audience can say the same, but at least we're having some fun.
Nope. But one thing's for sure, this is better than that shit show of last episode.
Yeah, man, nothing like having somebody there that you can't hear, so you just hear reactions. Ha ha! Funny.
It's like in dead air. like a fan blowing in the background.
Yep, it's great. I love nothing more than dead air, Randy. It's the best. Soup's professional, brah.
Oh.
All right, hit him with the shill statement there, Randy. I know you're dying to do it.
Giving is upon us, so we need your help, the listeners, to support the show on Patreon. Throw us a few shekels and whatnot. Show us that you love us, because we want to keep this shit show train on the tracks. Help us pay for server space. Help us pay for razors for Robert there to keep his beard nice and trimmed.
Yeah.
It just helps us in every way we can. We really want to get our Patreon going, so thank you for supporting the show.
And would like to grow the channel, would like to grow the show, would like to have more opportunities to do this. But for those of you that listen, the best thing that you can do for the show is tell a friend. That is the best thing that you can. If you told 1 or 2 people, our viewership would double overnight. And of course, we love all the comments and the engagement. And a lot of people, I'm sure, you just get text messages that mention something funny from the show.
Yeah, you suck.
Yeah. Even if you didn't listen, we'd keep making it. That's how committed we are. But better that kind of commitment than rather being in a mental institution.
That's true.
So every little bit helps. And, Randy and I are young fathers, so you can call it diaper fund, whatever you need to do. I can't say that it's a tax write-off. We are not a 501c3, but it at least makes you feel warm and fuzzy on the inside, right? To help two privileged white males, propagate and pay their server bills, right?
That's right.
Remember that privilege, Randy. Make sure that you check that one every single day. I do want to say we're on social media. You can check us out on social media. We're never there, but you can find Randy and I, our personal accounts on social media. He is Randy Watkins, and I'm Robert Jones. And this has been the R&R. Let me do the cheesy finger guns there for those of you watching the video version. By the way, I just want to say I love nothing more than if somebody walks, like says to you, like, "Hey, could you do this for me?" And you just go and like work your way out of the room. Nothing more douche. Well, actually, there are things douchier, like telling your kid you're going out for a pack of cigs and never coming home. That's pretty damn douchey. But yeah, definitely check us out. Follow us. Tell your friends. Don't report us to the authorities. I appreciate that. I know Randy certainly does too. Yeah. And just know that if you felt offended at this episode, you don't have to listen.
Don't be
there's other things you can listen to, like that aren't offensive, like the Teletubbies, and coloring books are popular with people who don't like to be offended.
How about Jim Rome?
Oh, right. Yeah. So anyways, for Randy, I'm Robert. This has been the R&R podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see y'all next week. Yeah, give him the finger guns. Pew, 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 pew.
Fire.